Hi everybody. Round 3 of AFL season kicks off on Friday night with Port Adelaide playing Essendon at Adelaide Oval. Yes, okay, the Bombers won last week and surprised everyone, including themselves. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and think that they are going to win more than a handful of games. The good part is that they will now have self-belief. The Power, despite a whole swag of injuries for this week, should be good enough to win this game, particularly at home in front of their mob. Port Adelaide by 41. On Saturday, St Kilda take on Collingwood at the MCG. Let's hope the Pies don't give their supporters another heart attack by waiting until the last minute to win the game. They should be better than the Saints because, well, nearly every other team is, but they will be tested. Collingwood is not good enough to shake off St Kilda like the Bulldogs did last week, so it'll be hard work all the way. They should prevail, and it's Collingwood by 15. Richmond versus Adelaide at Etihad. The Tigers were dirty on themselves after last week's loss to Collingwood on the last kick of the day, and if they put in another display like that, you can expect the Crows to be merciless. In fact, it's hard to see Richmond being good enough to beat Adelaide, even at Etihad. Their forward firepower is looking mighty dangerous. Tip is Adelaide by 29. Heading over to the SCG, Sydney plays GWS. The Giants were just that last week, giant killers, when they beat a hot Geelong. Can they do it 2 weeks in a row? Because at the moment, it's really hard to go past the Sydney Swans, who are winning their games easily. They have a mixture of old and new, but their olds are doing just fine. We'll have to pencil in the Swans for a 3 from 3. Sydney by 17. Gold Coast will host Carlton at Metricon. The Suns should be pretty confident going into this match against the Blues, who were beaten easily enough by Sydney, as expected. These are the games Gold Coast should never lose if they want to maintain that momentum. Winning their first 3 games puts them in a strong position early in the season. They should have too much talent, particularly up forward, to kick the winning score. It's Gold Coast by 31. Perth will be rocking on Saturday night when West Coast will play Fremantle at Domain. The first of the 2 Perth derbies happens this week, and the Dockers are shockers so far. Speaking of shocking, that word describes the Eagles' effort last week against the Hawks too. Can Fremantle shake off the early season form and make a statement against West Coast? Freo allowed the Suns to kick 20 goals against them last week. West Coast boasts a better forward line than Gold Coast. They'll win. West Coast by 22. North Melbourne plays Melbourne at Blundstone in Tassie. North is off to a great start to the season so far, and meeting the Demons in Tasmania is the right timing for them to go 3-0 to start 2016 off in high style. Melbourne made excuses for their game against Essendon last week, but this week they won't need them. The expectation is a loss. They should manage that okay. North Melbourne by 41. The Western Bulldogs play Hawthorn at Etihad. This is definitely the game of the round, with the Doggies wanting this win badly to show they will be the top 4 contenders this year. After a poor show against the Cats, the Hawks turned the power back on last week against the Eagles in a grand final repeat slaughter. The early season high for the Bulldogs is set to continue. The Western Bulldogs by 10. To complete round 3, Geelong will play Brisbane at Simonds Stadium. The Lions didn't win many games last year, so don't expect them to travel all the way to the Cattery and cause an upset. It's not going to happen. The last game of the round is thankfully the easiest tip to make. Geelong by 58. Let's review our selections for round 3. Port Adelaide, Collingwood, Adelaide, Sydney, Gold Coast, West Coast, North Melbourne, the Western Bulldogs, and Geelong. And looking at last week's fairly dismal results. We picked 5 from 9. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.